Hurricanes, earthquakes, and lightning all hit LA Sunday. But you know what the biggest boom was? Nico Lalos, baby. Payton Turner, comeback season, and our UDFA Son competition is wide open. Thomas, hit that intro.
Welcome to the award-winning Saints Happy Hour podcast. Seriously, this podcast has won awards. American standards are dropping every day. The show features Ralph, the best host in the world, who can barely pronounce his own name, much less anyone else's.
Marcus Marquez Callaway.
Dave is that dude who loves taking bathroom breaks. He's mad about almost anything, so make sure to lower your volume when he speaks.
Put that freaking clown meme back up that I made. Jesus Christ.
Andrew has sources, watches tapes, and knows football. He rarely shows up on time and wants to commit crimes to help the Saints win.
Sean Payton would have done illegal things. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because you know it's true.
Oh, and there's also Kevin, who is great at doing mock drafts, but struggles to actually watch Saints games or have a functioning relationship.
Budrich wants to know how the doctor's doing.
That ended.
Anyway, grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy the insanity.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Saints Happy Hour podcast. I'm Ralph Marlboro. I'm joined by Dave and Andrew. Also, hello to everyone watching live on Twitch right now. I can see Algiers boy, Andrew's dad, who managed to show up earlier than Andrew tonight. Mandy, Hatchet, John, all in the chat. Thanks for joining us, guys. We're going to recap the Saints versus Chargers game. Kendre Miller healing up like Wolverine. Should we be worried about 10,000 penalties in the preseason? And of course, we're going to be talking about all our UDFA Sons looking great in LA, maybe. And we'll wrap it up with questions from our patrons. But before we start, remember to subscribe to Saints Happy Hour wherever you get your podcast. And I also have to mention about our MVP contest, which is almost over, by the way. You only have, Thomas, how many, one more week or 2 more weeks to get
next week is the last chance. So
next week is the last chance. That's right. So if you ever wanted to be on the main show and tell Kevin to shut up when he's here, or you enjoy Dave going to the bathroom in person, or you can grill Andrew about his sauces, now you can. The person who donates the most each week gets entered into our drawing to sit in with us on the main show. And if we reach $100 in donations tonight, the MVP will choose which minibar bottle from my gigantic minibar booze collection I'm going to poison myself with. The catch is some of them are 20 years old. We set a record last week, me and Dave. And hey, listeners, if you want to send me minibar bottles to drink on air, my Discord DMs are open, baby. So are my Twitters. I want to thank Damon. He sent me the Malta boot. I completely forgot about it. I'm going to get it. So don't you worry, Damon.
Don't send him $18 nice bottles of Johnny Walker Blue either.
Yeah. Send me effing Green Apple is the one that I'm going to drink tonight, 75 proof, and Howlerhead bourbon. So... Thomas, do we have an MVP leader already?
Yes, sir. We do legendary week last week, record-breaking weeks. Cajun Sands won with whopping 55k bits. Damn,
it's crazy. I mean, it was off the rails last week. If you missed it, go back and watch it. It's on the Twitch. It's on the YouTube. It was.
Yeah, you know, I'm starting to feel like I don't show up and the donations go through the roof.
Andrew, you can leave now, Andrew.
Yeah.
You can leave now.
I apologize for being present today.
If you miss it, like catch the mailbag that me and Dave did, which we recorded directly after, and that was even more off the rails. It was just woo.
And hope you watched it with video on. And right now, Hatchet John started the party with 2k bit donation. And speaking of which, Hatchet John, additional 500 bits. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. So what are we drinking? I'm drinking Heineken Silver. Is
that like the low-cal beer?
It is. I felt bad. They had the little beer girl at Kroger, and she was handing out samples, and everyone was ignoring her. So I felt bad for her. No, it was okay.
Heineken Silver.
It's okay. I felt bad for her, so I went and bought some.
Have you told Sally about this?
Yeah, she's drinking it. I bought like one of the giant ones. I didn't buy. If she was cute, wouldn't have people been around her sampling her beer, Andrew?
Good point. What's the alcohol content?
Was she single? Hold on, I'm going somewhere with this, Dave.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't really ask. I didn't.
Is there any potential for Kevin?
They're gonna fuck each other next.
She was Mexican. She had a strong accent, which was nice.
Was she a doctor or work in the medical field at all?
Not yet, I don't think. If she's starting
Ralph,
to Hawks,
it sounds like
Heineken Silver.
Ralph, it sounds like you might have the type.
What's the? Yeah, really.
Yeah.
What's the alcohol content on Heineken Silver?
I don't know. It's all right. It's not the greatest.
So I'm drinking a Blue Moon Light Sky, also low cal. It was all I had in my beer fridge. My beer selection right now is pathetic.
Oh my gosh.
This is 95 calories, 3.6 carbs. It is 4% alcohol by volume, so very light. I actually like Blue Moon, but Blue Sky, this is terrible. Light Sky, sorry. It tastes like water.
Yeah.
It's absolutely awful.
All right. Well, I am drinking the exact opposite of what you guys are drinking. I am drinking Imperial Mexican Biscotti Cake Break from Evil Twin and Westbrook Brewing.
Biscotti, huh?
This clocks in at 10.5% alcohol by volume.
How much sugar is in that beer?
You know what? They don't have
sugar.
to put that information on beer labels, and I would prefer to keep it that way. This is a stout. It's very dark. It's black. It's a stout with coffee, cinnamon, almonds, cocoa nibs, vanilla, and
Cocoa
habanero
nibs,
peppers.
Cocoa nips.
Cocoa nibs.
I got to be honest. Like, I don't shy away from darker beers, especially like amber beers. But like a stout, like a chocolate stout, like
not your thing.
Porters, like ugh. That sounds gross to me.
So
Light Sky.
Yeah, it is.
So speaking of gross, the Saints survived the apocalypse in LA, and Dennis Allen, he was fed up after the game, and this might be the funniest, most interesting thing Dennis Allen has ever said as Saints coach. Thomas, play the soundbite.
Listen, I'm waiting for the officials to come in and meet with us. We got a hurricane coming in. My phone's blowing up with an earthquake emergency. And then the officials come in and say, well, it's technically an outside stadium, so if there's lightning, we might have a lightning delay. I'm like, what the hell?
DA was fed up, man. All they needed with the game, Andrew, was locusts and like the walls to start bleeding, and it would have been.
That's the most personality I've ever seen out of
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point.
I mean, it was
obviously that's what it takes, the end of the earth, for DA to give us something.
That's the charming and wittiness that only his inner circle ever sees.
Cajun Sand says he saw Cocoa Nips on Plank Road in the late 80s.
I don't get that. What does that mean?
I think that's a Baton Rouge reference.
Oh.
Isn't Plank Road. So Kendra Miller time, Andrew. He looked tremendous. Did his touchdown and his great catch that he had, did that get Darrell Williams? Is that going to get Darrell Williams cut? Because the Saints will feel good about running back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Darrell Williams could still make the team hypothetically, because I would think they need to keep 3 until Kamara's back from his suspension. So I still think whether it's Ellis Merriweather or Williams, like I think those guys will have a shot to be the third running back. But like, I think Kendre Miller at this point has cemented himself behind Jamal Williams as the clear number 2 while Kamara's out. And honestly, like, I feel like being a starter might be up for grabs while Kamara's out. I think the thing that was really interesting to me, besides the catch, which was absolutely
blitz
absurd,
pickup.
Yeah, his pass blocking was tremendous in this game. And so if he can do that, that's just more ways to be on the field. And obviously he's probably more of a pass catcher. And so in obvious passing situations, I think he makes a lot more sense than Jamal Williams. So, in terms of touches, depending on how a game goes in those first 3 weeks, I think there's a good chance that you'll see him a lot.
Dave, patrons in Discord threatened me. They said they would come to my house in Pearland if I draft Kendre Miller in the Saints Happy Hour fantasy draft.
Yeah.
To keep the Marlboro stink. Keep the Marlboro stink off of them. But You know, I feel this game, and we'll get to the defense in a minute, but running back's one of the things, like after this game, I feel so much better about it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, Kendra Millie's kind of banged up, and then they got Jamal Williams, but they don't have Kamara for 3 weeks. It's kind of dicey. Now I'm like, okay, Kendra Miller, Jamal Williams, whoever gets 3 carries, Merriweather, whoever, they get 3 or 4 carries. I feel okay about it. Like, whereas before Sunday, I was like, kind of sketchy. Now I feel much, much better.
Yeah, well, I mean, running backs today in the NFL are a dime a dozen, and they're expendable and they're interchangeable. That's part of the reason why they're trying to unionize.
Unionize within a. Do they have? What's the word for a union within a union within a union?
Yeah, it's like a Russian nesting union. Honestly, I think the Saints could sign a lot of people that could get 4 yards a carry if the blocking is good enough. But, and we're seeing it right here. Thomas is playing it right here. But I mean, Kendre Miller does look better than your average back. I mean, that
healed up like
he caught.
I mean,
we talked about it on the immediate post-game reaction show. I mean, the way he laid out for that, he looked like a wide receiver. That's not your normal running back.
He heals up like Deadpool.
And also, right, he's coming off of whatever knee sprain he had or whatever. I'm optimistic for sure. No reason not to be.
Andrew, the other fun thing about this game, Jake Haener looked pretty good. Like, I know they had positive reports from him in training camp, right? That he was looking pretty good. He looks, I don't want to say like great or anything, but he's going to be on this Saints roster for probably 2 to 3 years at least. And he's got backup quarterback potential, and he's got the Jake Haener sexiness. Like, how good are we feeling about him?
Yeah, good. He's had a tremendous camp, by the way. I think, media, publicly and privately, internally and externally, everyone's been talking about his camp just being absolutely incredible. And I think they were a little embarrassed by how he played last week. And it wasn't awful, but he started kind of bad and he made up for it. He had a good 2-minute drill, but like, I think there was this sentiment that like, I don't know. Like, that's why you got to wait till the lights come on sometimes. Cause a guy that looks great in practice, when they play in a real game, it just doesn't really show. And so I think there was a little bit of like, that seems weird that he has been so great during camp. And then he plays in a preseason game and we just didn't really see what we were expecting. And I think he kind of flipped the script a little bit. And I think this week he played a lot better. And this was maybe more similar to what they were expecting based on what they saw. So, look, I continue to say, his big thing coming out of college was that he was a very accurate passer. And the thing I noticed in week 1 was, he wasn't very accurate. But what really stood out to me was that his arm had some pop and surprising amounts of strength. And now he was more accurate this week, but I still saw, some of these outs that he's throwing, they're ropes.
They're ropes. And
so, he's a really small guy. He's a Drew Brees size. And so for him to rip the ball like he did on some of those completions, I was really impressed.
You can definitely see how much faster and harder he throws the ball when you compare it, especially to Jameis Winston in the first half. And just to kind of piggyback.
I don't know that he necessarily throws harder. It's just he flicks it out. Like the ball is out quicker. He doesn't have the big wind
I think it's
up.
coming out faster. I think it comes out on a lower and more direct trajectory, less rainbowy, I guess I would say.
He definitely changed his arm angle a couple times. That was one thing. That was what Breeze was so good at. I noticed at one point he had pressure in his face and he kind of came to the side and like, he's got like Carr has this too, that like wrist flick ability and where he can stay accurate with it. And Jameis definitely does not have that skill.
Well, the other thing I saw from him that I liked was like he'll throw it to a spot or to his receivers and let them make a play. And he kind of trusts them and he throw it into tight windows where it's kind of contested, like that Shaq Davis had one of those catches. And I feel like it shows he, kind of he's willing to take risks, obviously, but he trusts his receivers and also like a lot of quarterbacks, especially young guys. Taysom Hill would never do something like that. Like Taysom Hill has to see a guy. He would never throw a guy open. He would always have to see the guy open before he ever threw it. So I
think Jameis is like that to a degree too.
Yeah, he is. You're right.
Wow.
You're right. He is.
Before
so I like that from Haener. Next week, I don't know what we're going to see yet. I don't know if they've said anything. We don't need to see Jameis Winston. We have watched Jameis Winston for 5-6 years as a starting quarterback on our television screens every Sunday.
It's more than that. It's like 9, isn't it?
Whatever. We know exactly what he has. He's not going to get me better. He's only going to get worse, I would think, at this point. Let's start Jake Haener for the entire game.
Well, you know what's going to. I'll tell you what's going to get better. Damon sent me the Malta. Can you get a shot of this, Thomas? The Malta beer boot, or not a beer boot, a shot glass boot, and it's going to make every shot that I drink better. So donate tonight.
Wow.
I got the Maltese flag.
Yeah, it is. It's the Malta.
What's the boot? Can you put it up again? What's on it?
It's just the Malta and the flag, and they're like.
Are you sending me one of those?
Yeah, he sent me 4 of them.
I will never drink out of anything on this podcast ever again.
He sent 4 of them. He's like, I saw them, I had to buy it. It was preordained. It was the greatest find. Randomly.
Now on, Juju's going to be doing shots of Light Sky.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk about Jameis, Dave. I said,
do we have to? Didn't we do a whole podcast on that?
That was just for the patrons.
That was just for the patrons.
Sure Jameis 1 of 1 hears this.
Well, I'm going to summarize it for you. Jameis sucks.
Yeah.
I think ever since Devin White tried to murder him, he hasn't been the same. Like, he's not the same physically. He's hesitant to run, where when that first season under Sean Payton, he was always like, okay, first read, I'm taking off, so I don't turn the ball over. Now he's kind of hesitant, but he doesn't run as well because he hurt his knee. He's just not the same guy physically. So my only question with Jameis, Dave, is not that they would cut him, but do you think there is potential that at some point during the year, the Saints would be like, oh yeah, Haener's the number 2 and Jameis is the emergency 3rd?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, we don't get to see what happens in practices. So that would have to be a decision the coaches make based on what they see in practice and what they think. But yeah, it's possible, but I don't think we'll ever get to that point. I don't think that's something we're gonna have to worry about.
I doubt it, man. No. I think Jameis is the number 2 this year. I have a hard time seeing him. I mean, Haener has played well enough that I think he clearly deserves a roster spot, and we're keeping 3 quarterbacks this year, no doubt. But yeah, well, I do think it'd be interesting if someone went down, like if San Francisco type scenario where you have a playoff team at the trade deadline, they lose their starter, and they're trying to make a playoff run and their backup sucks. I wonder if he would be an asset on the trade market. And if someone was desperate enough to be like, look, we're trying to make a run here, like, we'll give you a 3rd for Jameis.
Ooh, that'd have to be a 3rd because he detonates the Saints cap. Like, he's like the Saints would have to do
they have some space. They have some space. So that's true. Honestly, a 3rd, I would do it, Oh,
it's hard.
I mean, obviously, Mickey.
I'd bite your hand off if you're offering me a 3rd for Jameis.
Right. So, I mean, I would wonder in a scenario like that, my guess would be that the backup immediately becomes Taysom Hill at that point. That if something were to happen to Carr, that Taysom would, slot into the backup role. But yeah, I mean, I could see the Saints potentially being in the trade market to ship him out if they could get a pretty good pick for him. Look, Jameis, we know what he is at this point.
All right, we got I got a great question from Octoberist in the chat, even though I hate to mention this person because it makes him happy, but I'm going to do it because this is such a great question. How much, Dave, would Jake Haener have to pay you guys to give him the loyalty that 1 of 1 gives Jameis?
He's already earned it. After the photo shoot, that was all I needed. It didn't matter how he was going to play.
$1.
It didn't matter how he was going to play. Yeah. Well, I want to say one thing about Jameis Winston. Yeah, the 1 of 1s of the world of Twitter, they'll say, well, he's got all these stats. He throws for all these yards. All
His
these
stats are
touchdowns.
decent. If you just look at the box score, it seems like he was okay in that game.
Here's my thing. At one point in the game this weekend, the preseason game, he took a sack. Joel Myers and John Stinchcomb. Okay, and I would like to think John Stinchcomb knows a thing or two. Noted how the Saints had no blocking on the left side of the line when it was obvious that the Chargers had loaded that side of their defensive line, and Jameis made no adjustments, no calls at the line, didn't bring extra protection, and to me, like, that's the most indefensible for somebody who's been in the league for so long, for somebody who at least one person thinks is a Hall of Fame quarterback, to not call out protections in a preseason game against a second string defense.
But he's never done that. He's never done that, Dave. Like,
but
Jameis
that's what
Winston's
I'm saying.
Never
like,
done protection. He's
then you can't be an NFL quarterback. Then you can't.
What?
There's only 32 jobs, okay? And one of the big things in the job is calling out protections and putting your offense in the best position and all that kind of stuff, and not taking like it's crazy to me that anybody could defend
Andrew.
Well, the thing about that is it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, right? I mean, other than time sacked, but like anytime Jameis 1 wants to do a dishonest evaluation of his guy, he's never going to put times he was sacked where it was his fault, right? Like that's never going to be a stat that's kind of contemplated. But look, I think the thing for me, and by the way, what you just described, Derek Carr happens to be really good at that. Pre-snap adjustments. Of course
he is, and that's why he earned one of the 32 spots.
Right. But
and
the reality with Jameis is I feel like every time he drops back to pass, it's an adventure. It's uncomfortable.
It's amazing in the preseason. It's amazing in the preseason.
It's fun. I had fun watching him in the preseason. I'm not gonna lie.
It's right.
In the regular season when things count. And
it's awful.
it's awful. It's not fun. And I thought this game in particular was hilarious, especially the long pass before halftime that he completed. That was great. But Jameis you're holding your breath every time he drops back to pass. Even the dump offs to Kendre Miller, I can't remember who he threw to. I think it was Kendre Miller, but like even the dump offs are uncomfortable. Where he's waiting 5 seconds. He's almost sacked. He's kind of moving sideways with that shuffle, and it looks uncoordinated. And then he gets it to the back. Like, it just doesn't look smooth.
It doesn't.
And look, like, I've always said this. I think it's unfair, but the reality is we've been watching Drew Brees for 15 years. We've been watching a guy operate at a Hall of Fame level, playing with consistency and accuracy and getting the ball out. And Jameis Winston has none of those traits.
Well, and I think
unfairly, it looks particularly awful to guys like us because it is the polar opposite of what we've seen.
Well, I think that's a great point, because I think if we hadn't watched Drew Brees for 15 years, I don't think Dave and John Stinchcomb, they don't point that out. They're like, oh, it's a protection issue. He didn't block it. And I think that's a great point. Like, we watched.
You didn't notice that shit with Aaron Brooks.
That's right. Until Drew spoiled us for anyone else. Dave, would you buy
how good Drew Brees was until we saw? Oh, wait, no, that doesn't make. Never mind.
Jason Champagne has a great idea for a T-shirt. Dave, would you buy a Jake and Bake T-shirt?
Yes, maybe, as long as the text was next to one of those photo shoot photos.
So.
I mean, like you said, Ralph, he's like already the third best quarterback the Saints have drafted.
In the last 40 years.
All time.
I mean maybe he's not.
Number 2 is Danny Werfel, so it's not saying much, but.
Yeah. Number 1 is Archie. Number 2 is Werfel, and Jake Haener's the third.
Jake Haener is like on Mount Rushmore of drafted Saints QB.
He is.
He drafted Aaron Brooks.
Green Bay.
The
Packers. Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's bad. So, Thomas, do we have a donation update? How close am I to using the boot?
We are at 30%. We are at 3K.
Come on,
so
guys.
not that close, but still doable. Can we make it to 7 in
You guys
7
are like,
weeks?
Juge is
in a
here,
row?
I'm not donating.
I'm not
I mean,
donating.
way to make me feel good.
Yeah, donate, guys. So
Sands is here at some point.
But we
He'll
had
drop
one.
it.
But we
I feel
had
like
one
all
new
the
donation,
patrons are
guys.
saying
One new
it.
donation, by the
Thank
way.
you.
One new donation from Who Dat Golfer, 500 bits.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And who that golfer is the one who sent the howler head. So thank you, Who Dat golfer.
Thanks, Who Dat.
So guys, if you enjoy the show, consider becoming a patron. We can't do it, this amazing award-winning podcast, without your support. You get access to all our award-winning daily content. Fall in love and join us all football season. Get the 2-time award-winning Louisiana Sports Writers Association Podcast of the Year every day, commercial free. Do it. Go to saintshappyhour.com.
What is Andrew doing there in the background?
I don't know. He's
Watch.
probably
Zoom in.
getting
Enhance, Thomas. Enhance.
So I'm gonna wait for Andrew because I have a
He's got a
tape.
fridge down there. He's got
A fridge beer.
Andrew's
Andrew,
bougie. He's probably got a fridge in every room.
he's got a fridge within a fridge. Andrew, another really positive
Never enough room to store your
aspect besides the running back situation, which we feel great about because Kendre Miller looked amazing. I love him. I'm biased, but Jalen Smith, is that how you say it? Jalen?
Jalen, I think it's just
Jalen Smith, he, in the first half, when he was playing, him and Malcolm Roche, they looked head and shoulders above everybody on the field, including all the Chargers. So then, all of a sudden now, we got the news today that Demario Davis is back, but suddenly I'm like, Jalen Smith, pretty good at linebacker. Now I got Demario, I got Pete Werner, I got Jalen Smith, I got Vaughn, I guess. Like linebacker, feeling a lot better. Like Jalen Smith, for a guy that you picked up in the summer, that's about as good as I think you can hope for at linebacker. A player like this quality.
I said on our post game that I thought it felt very Quan Alexander-y. But yeah, linebacker all of a sudden depth wise is feeling pretty good. Also, Ralph, I'm not going to let you off the hook. I'm pretty sure, Dave, I don't know if you heard this. I'm pretty sure I heard Ralph mispronounce Roche. I'm pretty sure he said Roche.
Yeah, like a real French.
Yeah, did you hear that?
No,
It was
I
subtle.
believe it.
It was subtle. I heard
Pas
Roche.
dire le nom de quelqu'un correctement.
That's right.
So
I'm in award-winning form tonight, Thomas.
That's right.
Mark this tape. We'll send it in for next year when we go for the three-peat. Speaking of Roach, Dave, your UDFA son, he looked incredible.
Yeah.
Like hey, Mickey Loomis, Kai Harley, who just got a promotion, like do a little cap wizardry, extend your boy, give him a little cash right now, buy low before he explodes and gets huge contract next March.
Mm-hmm. Pay the man. Yeah, no, I mean, not surprising. Like I said on the post game, you can pretty much bet if a player's in his contract year, he's that'll be his best
Thinner.
year. So, but yeah, no, he looks good. I'm sure he won't
Unless
be
you are
playing
Davenport.
Right. Unless you're totally physically incapable of playing any better.
Thomas from the top rope.
Thomas just bodied you up there, Dave. I mean, I love how you're like clockwork, take it to the bank, contract year, you're going to be awesome. And then he just.
Well, you have to stay on the field. I'm talking about if you're actually healthy.
Davenport was healthy. He just
all of last year.
He played, right, Andrew? He wasn't hurt.
all of his one sack.
He didn't have a sack. He had a half a sack.
Half a sack.
Who signed him? Did Denver sign him?
Vikings.
Vikings, and he's number 0.
Oof.
As he should be.
Speaking,
total after the season, right?
That's actually the perfect number for him.
It's a perfect number for Marcus Davenport. It's the perfect segue because we're talking about disappointing Saints defensive linemen, but we may be in the midst of Payton Turner comeback season, and DA got me real excited about Payton Turner comeback season. Thomas, play that soundbite.
All right, I wasn't ready, Ralph. Sorry, my bad.
that's kind of the stuff that we've seen him doing in training camp, and that's why we drafted him where we did. And I think here's a kid that, has had a lot of injury issues, which has forced him to miss a lot of time. And so therefore he's missed a ton of development. It's been an unfair assessment of the player up to this point, but I do think he's had a good camp, and I do think he made some nice plays today.
Are we buying the Payton Turner hype, Dave? We buying it?
I mean, I buy it in so much that I think he could be a good player if he's on the field. But I'm not buying that he's going to continue to stay healthy.
Do you think his number 0 represents the number of sacks he'll have this season?
Well, no, he should be 0.5.
Or do you think it represents the number of first-round picks the Saints should have spent on him?
Definitely the latter. Yeah. Definitely.
Making it rain.
Your dad, Andrew, says the Turner hype train is going downhill. Is downhill? Is that
good,
downhill
right?
with
it builds up
gaining speed?
It's gaining speed. It's gaining momentum.
Yeah.
Thanks, Butteridge. He gifting a 1-tier sub, or tier 1 sub. Is that how you say it, Thomas? Thank you, Butteridge. Tier 1. Thank you.
How close are we to Ralph taking one to the face?
Yeah, we are awfully close. No, 150, 1500. I mean,
1,500 bits.
Yeah, and the new MVP leader is Butteridge. Butteridge coming from behind. 4,500 bits. Butteridge in the lead.
And 1,500 bits is what, $1.50?
1,500 bits is 15 bucks.
$15. So, and I want to thank, I'm stealing Butteridge's bit that he does in the Discord where he posts a Saints primetime highlight every day. During the off season, I think I'm going to do videos where I just comment on he'll pull like like today he pulled Saints Falcons from like 1995 or 1994. Awesome. And it was just awesome. It was awesome. The Saints fell behind 17-0 and came back and won. It was great. The Butteridge highlight. It's the highlight.
Timestamp. Turner is going to get 8 sacks.
Did you see?
Hey, Tomas, check the timestamp on this.
By the way, speaking of the Discord, I saw that someone posted a story that some guy named Lawrence Andrew Fernandez said Saints fans want Jameis Winston to start week 1 over Derek Carr after QB's impressive outing in LA.
That was a Chat GPT created article. I firmly believe
I think we found who Jameis 101 is.
If Payton Turner gets 8, if he gets 8 sacks, the show after he gets the 8th sack, I will line up 8 shots and do all of them during the show.
Let's go. Live show.
So we got to do this because I felt like for a moment, and this is one of the things that I love about our UDFA Son draft. I felt there was a moment, Dave, in this game where not only were the current UDFA Sons were taken over because Andrew's son, Headley, was punting. It felt like he was punting a ton. But Kroll was dropping passes left and right. Roach was looking great. Like the UDFA Sons were all looking good. That's the fun news. The bad news, kind of like the 2023 UDFA Adopted Son competition. I'm going to be positive, Andrew, and say it's wide open. But no one's really making a move, I think, to get on the roster.
First of all, it's not wide open. You have no chance. I don't know why they got you second from the top here. You should be all the way at the bottom. I should be Shaq Davis. I should be closer to the top. And earlier in the intro, you touted this as the who is the linebacker that we're all hyped about now? Lawless, or what's his name?
Lawless. He's not a rookie.
Oh, okay.
He's not a rookie.
Lalo Salamanca.
But
I do like that Ralph has a fat head of Nico Lalos.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
What year is Lalos? How many years has he been in the league?
Like 2. He was in an XFL.
He was with the Saints, I think, last year, like in training camp. I think he was on the practice squad for the Saints, and then he went to the XFL, and he hurt
his groin. The Saints groin report today was horrific. They had like,
but Andres Pete was back.
Yeah.
Who else was back? Demario Davis and someone else. Cesar Ruiz. We got our guards
Jimmy
back,
Graham
baby.
will be back too. Jimmy Graham will be back.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham.
But No, but we were talking about Lalos or whatever, but this was the Shaq Davis coming out party. I don't know why nobody's gonna remember this game because of a couple of sacks and a batted down pass.
If he would have caught the quad box pass from Jameis,
yeah,
it would have been the officially the Shaq.
It would have been
Davis
over.
game. Yeah.
So I gotta be honest with you. I mean, and Thomas has Jerron Cade. I don't even know who that is. Is he still on the roster? Did he play at all?
Orgy still on the roster?
Yeah, Orgy is. Like I said,
help me. That's our son, man.
Did he help you though? Did he?
That's our son.
I feel like, Dave, this is right now. It's a 2-horse race between you and me.
Yeah, and then Kevin has Alex Pihlstrom, and he's a guard. I don't think he's gonna make it. So, and Orgy, no, I don't think he's gonna make it. Orgy was out there. He was out there on the Brissy fumble recovery, I think.
He was there.
Maybe the Malcolm Roach, maybe the Malcolm Roach sack. He was given I think he's an Omega Sci-Fi. He was doing the hooks there. Even though I don't know if he had anything to do with the play at all. But Andrew, I think you're exactly right. It's between me and you right now, 2-horse race between Lou Hedley and Shaq Davis. And the good news for me is that Lou Hedley's a punter, so they're only keeping one punter. So either Andrew's going to win this by a mile because they're going to keep Hedley, and then that's their starting punter, and I don't think anybody could beat that. Or they're going to cut him, and that just leaves me in sole possession of first place. And I like my chances because, as we discussed on the post-game podcast on Sunday, if it's a tie between Hedley and Gilligan as far as punting and the competition is concerned, they're just going to go with Gilligan because he's already in the building. They're comfortable with him.
That's what I was going to say. I felt great about. I was despondent that there was a good chance Andrew would win again, which he would be insufferable. But then Andrew mentioned on the postgame show, Gilligan's the holder for kicks.
Yeah, that's also
so
hurts.
So for your UDFA son, like he can't just slightly outperform Gilligan. He's got to blow him out the water.
Yeah, it's got to be like no question.
So I'm feeling.
Is this it?
No, it's not.
Nope.
It's just a
1K away. 1K away.
Close.
So I'm feeling. I'm
Get
feeling
ready,
good.
Ralph. Get ready, man.
I got 2 comments. First of all, Bud Rich in the chat. He's saying Orgy is doing fine as a special teams linebacker. He ran with the second team and did well. I missed. Bud Rich is kind of sounding a little Jameis 1 of 1 to me here. He's trying to come up with he's just trying to make Orgy sound as good as he can. And then also to Archmidge in the chat, you can't just type the number 1500. That's not how the donations work. You have to actually donate the money.
Dave.
and then we'll get the money. But just typing the number 1500 doesn't do it.
Hatchet John just with 300. Thank you. So that's the thing, right?
Damn, it doesn't. Holy shit.
Did you guys see that Brian Edwards was?
Brian Edwards. I'm surprised they didn't dump him out of the plane on the way home.
Right.
Poor guy. 2 offensive pass interference penalties that negated two touchdowns.
And I think they had about 6 groins explode at practice.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Okay. So who's the MVP, Thomas? So they can pick.
Oh, Archmage. Thanks, man. He figured it out.
No, he did not, did he?
Yeah, he did. Thank you.
1,300 bits. Budrich is in the lead. Swiftly.
So how much time do we have before you declare MVP and they get to pick
1 minute. Hachajan is in the second place with 3,300 bits.
So what will it be? Howler? Or
I want the green apple one.
The green apple. I don't know
if the Howler one. What flavor is that?
It's not. It's just Howler Head.
Is it banana?
Straight bourbon.
No, that's more
Howler Head straight
sour
bourbon.
apple, green apple.
I might have to do 2 shots of this. I don't know if it'll all fit in the.
That's what she said.
In the boot.
Ooh.
Damn.
Yeah, I think you're going green apple.
Not going to grab it. So what is it? What is it going to be, Thomas? What's the MVP and what do they decide?
Green apple.
10 seconds, guys. I give you 10 seconds.
Count it down.
10.
No,
9.
you need it like a clock.
8. 7. 6.
Is it
5,
banana whiskey?
4,
No, it's just regular bourbon.
2. 1. Okay, Budrich. Which one do you want? Unless he told us already.
Did he tell us?
People want green
he
apple.
He said green apple.
All right, I'm gonna.
Budrich said
green apple. It
Let's
is.
see.
Damn.
Ooh, I can hear it.
That's a cool sound.
Yeah. Hey, Thomas, check the timestamp on that. We're gonna the new
I'm doing the
glug,
boot.
glug sound.
Before
let me
I
see it.
do
hold
the-
it up again. Hold it up again. Hold it up.
I got the
for a little bit
boot.
longer. The boot.
I got the boot.
Wait, is it in there?
It's in there, but I'm gonna
Wait,
do
it's green apple, but it's not green.
Do you want me to do? Yeah, I don't know. It's not green, so I'm gonna do it out of the boot. Here we go. Oh.
I feel like he kind of exaggerates sometimes.
No, sometimes
He does it up for a minute.
sometimes I do exaggerate, but that one, it had like a weird, like mustiness at the end.
How old was it?
I don't know. This isn't one from my wife's Netherlands collection from a decade ago.
Does it
This was
remember
from-
Obama administration?
This is from Who Dat Golfer. We're not done though. We're not done.
Oh, there's more in there.
There
Is
was
that
more.
bigger than like one of those airplane bottles?
Yeah, we got.
Oh yeah, that's like a little Tabasco bottle.
It's like a little Tabasco bottle. So we got one. We got
is it
one.
filled? Did it fill the boot
No,
again?
it filled it like halfway. So it's like a shot and a half. This is awful though.
You didn't join a fraternity in college.
He's making up for it, you know.
Did you? Were you in a fraternity in college?
No, I was not. I was a GDI.
I think
You're the only one.
Just me on the show.
Pike boy,
Quick story, so people will
fire truck boy.
Quick
We don't
story.
have such things in Poland.
Quick
Riding
story
the fire
time
truck.
with Uncle Ralph, so y'all can feel really sad for me.
Oh,
So
damn.
my first year in college, I went to Ole Miss because my whole family went to Ole Miss. And when I went to Ole Miss at the time,
I didn't
they
know
were-
that.
Yeah,
You,
so they
your
were like,
first year was Ole Miss.
my first year was.
I
Ole
don't.
Miss.
I don't think I ever knew that.
I was like, I don't know.
What year
that
was that? Was that Eli?
It's 90
If I was taking a Ralph trivia test right now, I would have failed that question.
94. Like Ole Miss did
Freshman
not.
year '94. You were in
Yeah.
Oxford.
I was in Oxford.
Okay.
The
The
dean.
school up north.
The school up north. I was in the dean dorm. But if you want to hear a sad
And then what
story,
happened?
so
No, I
it was
wanna
like
know why you left.
70% Greek at Ole Miss. So I
No, it's
pled.
like 90% Greek.
It isn't now. I think it might have been. Is it still?
It's like
Anyway, so
no, it's like everybody's Greek.
It's not me, and I'm gonna explain it. So I go
You
through.
told the story.
I go through pledging, and like at the time, I had like really bad acne,
Yeah.
and I'm 18, and I'm crippled, and I'm shy. Like I got made fun of so much going from just house to house pledging, and one guy as I'm sitting there in the corner, just like counting down, like I gotta get out of here. I hear like three of them talking, and they're like, "Did you see Captain Pegleg with the acne?" And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh my god.
I'm like, "Oh my god!" That there's no other one. There's no one else here that is
so
limping and has acne. I'm like, I'm just gonna go back to my dorm and cry.
Jesus.
The funny thing is, well, it's not funny, I guess, because they do it for a reason. But if you don't get a bid,
Yeah, this is the part you told us about.
they send like a little committee of like 3 or 4 people with like suicide prevention pamphlets
I mean,
and like
Really?
therapy to make sure you're all right.
you don't remember
'Cause-
him telling us this time?
Because I like if you don't make it at Ole Miss, you're like outcast. You're like you're like you go to the land of misfit toys with like the 15% of the people that aren't Greek, which was actually a great experience for me. But that's a story time with Uncle Ralph.
I mean,
wanna feel bad for
after
me.
hearing them call you Peg like
Captain
boy,
Peglet. Captain Peglet.
it's a good thing they brought you over that reading material. Wait, so why did you leave Oxford?
Because man, I was just like, I get like if you're not Greek and you don't really like the Greek lifestyle, it's like I was like, it's I couldn't.
By the way, I
do it.
saw your brother today.
Oh, yeah. How's he doing?
I didn't talk to him, but
Well.
I did have to make a trip over to the Tulane mailroom today.
give it.
Ralph, you went to LSU after that.
I went to LSU after that. You see, my brother, you should have given him a hug and alcohol, Dave, because this is his busiest time of the year. All
Yeah,
the students,
I
all
know,
the
and
students
they're
are
all-
moving in.
I know. Well, correct. Well, school's already started, but it is their busy season, and it's hot in there. There's no air conditioning in the big mailroom portion. What's your brother's name?
My brother's name is Jay. His full name is Oliver Joseph Marlborough III, but we call him Jay.
Because he was named after your father.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm going to say Oliver Joseph. What's going on? OJ.
I'm gonna
OJ. I'm going to call him OJ. Does anybody call him OJ?
No, I wanted to name my son Oliver Joseph Marlborough IV, but my wife was like, "You can't do that." People call him OJ and make fun of him, and I was like, "I think that'll pass eventually." But she's like, "No, you can't."
Wait a minute. Wait, can you do that if you're not? Wouldn't your brother be the only one who could do that and have it?
I don't know. I was gonna do. I wanted to, but
I don't think he could be. You could name him whatever you want. He could be Oliver Joseph Marlborough, but
he can't be. He can't be a 4, right?
I don't. I mean,
we need a ruling.
I don't know.
We need
What's
a ruling in
rule
the
on
chat
that? Because your brother doesn't have kids, right?
Before we get to questions, I want to remind you, if you're a Prime member, did you know you can subscribe to Saints Happy Hour Twitch channel for free? Yeah, it's a great way to support Saints Happy Hour, and it doesn't cost you anything. Thomas even created easy instructions on how to do it right in the podcast episode description. Click on the link to subscribe to Saints Happy Hour using Amazon Prime. So Thomas,
and you can do it each month.
Each month, every month you do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's a great way to support the show. So, and by the way, I want to thank people. We are on pace in August to do 45,000 downloads. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it. Thomas, hit the music. It's time for Take It to the Top. Yeah. So, what's first up, Thomas? What do we got?
All right. First question. We had so many questions, guys. Tons of questions. Damn.
And by the way, Thomas, I want to remind people, if we don't get to your question on the podcast, we always use every question for mailbags and content later. Keep them coming. We promise we will use them. What's the first question?
At least we try. We try very hard to use every question. Okay, first question from Don Checo. Speaking of Kendre Miller's performance, would you trade Kamara for Jonathan Taylor?
Don Checo, I might have to ban you for that. How dare you? We don't trade Kamara for Jonathan Taylor. You just trade for Jonathan Taylor and make the nerds' heads explode. And then you extend Jonathan Taylor and you run the wishbone. You don't trade Kamara. You triple down on running back.
My answer is yes, for the record.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
You would trade Kamara for Jonathan Taylor?
Yes.
I
mean, I'm not. I would assume that Mickey would figure it out financially. Like, I'm not talking about finances or cap numbers or whatever, but player for player, I would take Jonathan Taylor over Kamara. Yes.
How many years has Taylor been in the league?
This is year
4.
This is year 4 because he was a second round pick.
I guess my only concern is I feel like Taylor's got less life left. I feel like Kamara's kind of always been a committee back. He's never had to do it all himself. I don't know.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The interesting thing with Taylor is, will he get traded? Because
why do the Colts want to trade him?
Because they don't want to pay him.
They don't. He's asking for one.
Well,
Dave, he's 24 years old.
That's
the Colts don't want to pay him,
but that's also.
But they want a first round pick for him. It'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see if a team like panics at the deadline or gets injuries or whatnot, and they're like, "Hey, we'll do the McCaffrey thing where San Francisco gave up a ton of picks."
Did you just say that 24 is 30 for a running back? Is that what you just said?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
So, Dave, like I'm not letting you off the hook here. What would 28 be? Just
40.
Okay, well that's what Alvin Kamara is.
I know.
Okay. So you're making a trade.
But back to my earlier point, he hasn't been like a bell cow back. They haven't used him. He hasn't been like an every down back. He's been kind of mixed in, a lot of receiving stuff.
Taylor has 3 years in the league.
I don't.
I I got a question from Algiers Point Boy.
Is Taylor like a pass catching guy? Is he like
He
big
can
on-
catch it.
He's the best, dude. He's the best.
He's the best. So
He's a do it all.
Algiers Point has a question that I'm going to ask. Here's the thing: Traquan Smith, Will Lutz to the Denver Broncos for a 5th round pick and 3 pounds of the best weed in Denver. Who says no?
I don't.
Oh, I know Dave doesn't.
They wouldn't trade Lutz. They wouldn't go groupie over Lutz, would they, Andrew?
No,
things being equal?
I've heard Lutz is ahead in the competition. I think it would take a pretty big collapse in the last couple weeks in this last preseason game for Lutz to lose his job.
I mean, I think it would take. I don't even think the last preseason game factors into it. I think it would take the first 2 weeks Lutz stinking, and then it's too late. Like I think if the Saints cut Groupie, but somebody will pick him up in the first month, because there's always a team that sucks at kicker. So
maybe there's not a lot of teams that give a job to a undrafted rookie free agent, though.
I mean, obviously, Payton would only be willing to trade for Groupie if he didn't think that he was going to get through waivers.
No one is trading for a UDFA kicker.
No, they just wait.
No one is traded. They'll wait
that's
for.
why, I mean, that's why I thought it was an unusual story. That was
what was the story?
What didn't Duncan? Well, what didn't Duncan?
It was Peter King. It was Peter King. It was Peter King saying whoever loses the competition for kicker, they would trade him to Denver. Butteridge says, if the Broncos offered a 3rd for Lutz, would you do it?
Yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
I think I would.
A 3rd?
A 3rd
for a kicker?
Yeah, but then you got to go groupie. You got to go rookie. You got to depend on the rookie kick.
I would do it.
When's the last time a kicker's gotten a 3rd round draft pick?
I don't remember.
Has a kicker ever been traded for something like that?
That's where I draw the line, though, because I feel like after the 3rd round, it's such a crapshoot that I wouldn't take a 4th round pick for Lutz.
Well, what's next, Thomas?
Before next question, question from the chat from Cajun Sands, the MVP from last week, the legend. Any news on Graham? Andrew?
Yeah, he's good. He did tests. I talked to someone today. He's got, I don't know, clean medical, nothing to worry about. I didn't really get details on what happened though, so that's still
that
weird.
Would be a HIPAA violation.
The video from TMZ is hilarious of him in the bushes and running away. It's hilarious now because he's okay.
Yeah.
If something bad would have happened, it wouldn't be funny. But because he's fine, it's very funny. You should watch it.
What do you guys think happened? Let's speculate.
I mean,
when I mentioned this on the last podcast,
we didn't even speculate on the patrons only podcast, but Andrew's like, let's speculate on the free one. Let's just
when we've got a wider audience that's more likely to crush us.
You made me tiptoe and watch my words.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the thing is with Jimmy Graham,
let's not just speculate. Let's wildly speculate.
He has been a straight and narrow guy his entire career. I think it's a medical episode. I don't think the Saints are
except for being a pilot. Doesn't that kind of go against?
Yeah, I heard that he took some ayahuasca with Aaron Rodgers and
wrong answers only.
Yeah, couldn't handle it.
Wrong answers only. He drank some Malort and it went bad.
He said, "Ralph did 1 Malort. I can do 2. Easy.
I could do. You do 2
He went
Malort.
on a date with Kevin. He had to get the hell out of there, and you got disoriented.
Right.
Makes me almost want to vomit.
Is it possible that he got near Dave's bathroom and became disoriented by the smell?
I need that soundbite too.
What? So what's next, Thomas?
All right, next question from Badrich, the current MVP leader. Not that much time, guys. Badrich asks, who is one QB you'd wish the Saints had gone back and drafted from the 80s and 90s?
I mean, just
Joe
keep
Montana?
your pick. Keep your pick in the 83 draft and pick Marino. Like,
Oh yeah,
I don't know. Like, whatever. Like,
Anybody.
Anybody.
It's unbelievable.
Anybody.
It's unbelievable how many amazing
anyone.
quarterbacks they passed on. It's just
Literally
the
anyone.
list is too long.
Literally anyone. Like trade up for Elway, Marino.
I mean, like how many? This is a legitimate question because I don't know the answer to this because I wasn't really a fan back there. Like, how many years did they have? Like, how many consecutive years would they have like a top 5 pick?
All right, I'm gonna go full Kevin here. All right, what were the years again?
From the 80s and 90s.
It's 20
had
years.
a top 5 pick.
But I'm curious to know how many times they had a top 5 pick.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you the guys they passed on. So starting in 1980, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm pulling.
I mean, Dave, they had a top 10 pick from 1967 to 1978, 100%.
Right.
Every year. Probably top 5 most years, unless they traded it stupidly to Baltimore.
All right. In 1980, I mean, I'll have to go haphazard here. But in 1980, they had the 12th pick, and they picked Stan Brock, who was a
solid,
good solid player. They passed on Art Monk, for what it's worth. They passed on. Actually, the quarterbacks after this were all kind of awful.
What about 81? What did they pass?
Right,
81. Who did they pass on?
See, what year was Montana drafted?
It's like 76, 77.
Oh, he was drafted in the 70s?
Just do like 10 years. We can't do 25. We can't do 40 years of who the Saints passed on quarterback.
Because it's 80s and
separate.
I got to look at these drafts one by one, so you got to give me some time.
All right. Thomas, you
in 1980, hold on, I'll just do this one. In 1981, the Saints picked first overall. They took George Rogers, who was a good, productive player for them, but you want to know who went number 2?
Lawrence Taylor.
Yes, correct. Also, they passed on Ronnie Lott. And quarterback-wise in that draft, yeah, there was not much. Neil Lomax. They could have had Neil Lomax.
Neil Lomax would have been a Saints Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Garen freaking
I mean, you can't really be upset about passing on Lawrence. Lawrence Taylor. The Saints went on to have
Lawrence Taylor would die.
Linebacker.
He would be dead if he would have been drafted by the Saints. Lawrence Taylor on Bourbon Street. Are you kidding me?
Thereafter would go on to have a great linebacking course. So it's not like
Can you imagine Lawrence Taylor and Ricky Jackson though? They'd have drafted both of them.
Yeah, that would have been epic. All right. The Saints in 1982, they forfeited their 1981 first-round pick after selecting Dave Wilson. So they would have had the 3rd overall pick, but they decided to pass on that. They could have had Jim McMahon. Who's Art
Schlichter. He was the degenerate of degenerate gamblers. Like that dude
really
loved to gamble.
Yeah, some of these quarterbacks, like I'm 3 years.
It gets 83 though.
I'm 3 years in, and like the quarterbacks are honestly not.
Get to 83,
but 83
and then
was the Marino draft.
Yeah,
all right,
get to 83, and then we'll wrap it up.
Wasn't there a year where a bunch of quarterbacks were?
That's 83.
Well, 83. The thing is, the Saints didn't pick until.
Why?
They didn't. They traded it. They traded their 83 pick for Bruce Clark. So Green Bay had their Saints pick.
Yeah, so they didn't have a first-round pick. Green Bay picked 11th overall. They had Tim Lewis, a corner. But yeah, Elway was picked first overall. Todd Blackledge was picked 7th, which
he was terrible.
Jim Kelly, 14th.
Jim Kelly.
Tony Eason, 15th.
Tony Eason would have been a Saints Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Ken O'Brien was a
Ken
good
O'Brien would have been a Saints Hall of Famer.
Dan Marino.
No, he wouldn't have been a Saints Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm not clear on where the Saints would have picked here.
It doesn't matter. Like they'd pick where Green Bay would have
Green Bay's pick. It sounds like
Green Bay. They would have had Green Bay's pick.
All right, we'll do one
more.
That
is fucking stupid.
In 84, the Saints picked. They don't have a first-round pick. What the hell happened? Where are our first-round picks? How many did we give up for Marcus Davenport in the 80s?
They traded that pick for Earl Campbell.
Yeah,
to who?
So who was
to the Oilers, man?
To
Houston.
To Houston.
The Oilers picked second. They gave up the second overall pick?
No, look later, probably.
How could it be later? They weren't winning games.
Are you telling me it's Earl to first Campbell?
No, it wasn't a first, but it was. They gave up a first in either 84 or 85 for Earl Campbell.
Yeah, well, all I can tell you is they didn't have a first round pick in 84. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. No wonder we were terrible in those years.
Right.
By the way, they could have drafted Boomer Esiason.
Saints Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Okay, Boomer.
Long Island's finest.
No,
right, I got to keep going until I can see someone they actually pass when they actually have a pick.
While Andrew looks for quarterbacks the Saints should have picked, which they are plentiful. Thomas, what's next on the questions?
Damn, that was a long one. Next one.
Yeah, very
from
long.
Bulky. A long question. Had there not been so many penalties, do you think Jameis would have had a mathematically impossible 150 QBR or simply a perfect 100 QBR for his hurricane performance?
This is proof. This is a great question, Balky, by the way. This is proof that God loves us, because if Jameis would have had a 150 QBR rating in this game, the Jameis stands would have been insufferable. They're insufferable already, but they would have taken it to an entirely different level. So the penalties were actually a gift from the heavens up above to spare us from having to hear for the next 3 weeks how Jameis should be the starting quarterback.
I mean, I know this is a jokey question. QBR doesn't really even take into account penalties, right?
It does not.
Okay.
So the Wicker Man says...
By the way, the Saints also passed on Randall Cunningham.
There you go. The Wicker Man says...
We drafted Alvin Tolles instead.
The Wicker Man says... Thomas saying, okay, Boomer, set off my Google Home alert. And then Dave saying Long Island's finest made it give me the address of a roofing company on Long Island. We're setting off Google.
What company did they give you? I'm curious to know what Google suggests. Who Google suggests to re-roof your home if you're living in the Nassau, Suffolk tri-state area.
Thomas, what's next?
Okay, final question of the show. But before the final question, a shout out to Saints Rabbit. He, as always, sent us a million questions. But tonight I decided to not use any of his questions. Yeah, applause to him and just give others a chance. So last question from Saints Tompicus. Which inspires less confidence? A squirrel considering crossing the road you're driving on, or Jameis dropping back to pass?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know. Similar IQ between the squirrel and similar pre-snap ability.
Oh, there you go.
Pre-snap ID. I don't know, man. Would you? I'm curious.
Well, here's the question.
Would you guys call Jameis Winston stupid? Because I'm not sure I would actually.
No, I think Jameis, he doesn't process information quick enough. And the thing is, he knows he doesn't. That's why he does all those weird quarterback drills where they're throwing stuff at him and they're swinging the baseball bat and all that. Like, he knows what he doesn't do well, but he just can't fix it. It's like me not being able to pronounce names. Like, I know that I can't do it, and I constantly work at it and read up on it. But once the light goes on for the camera and Thomas says action, we're counting down and go, Ralph, it's showtime, I fall back into my old habits and I mispronounce names left and right. Jameis knows what he's not good at. He just can't fix it.
Yeah, I feel like the majority of the fan base has now turned on him. I think there was a minute there where he had a ton of support and a lot of love, and now the pendulum has swung the other way, and we're kind of being harder. I've been hard on Jameis on this podcast, but I'm in a weird place with Jameis Winston, and it's still like some of the things that he said and staying in New Orleans, it's like, man, he really does love it here. And he really seems committed to the Saints, to the city, to the organization, despite everything that's happened, injuries, maybe false promises, whatever. And so, like, against all odds, like, as much as I like to pick on him and I think he's kind of terrible, I don't know. I'd love to see him succeed too.
Like if God forbid Derek Carr got injured for like 3 weeks and Jameis balled out, and like some team
I would love that. It'd be
and,
cool.
and Jameis, some team gave Jameis like 3 years, $75 million in
awesome.
March, I'd be like, you go, Jameis. Like, good for you. Good for you. It's not going to work out for the team that signed you, but we love you. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll always have Atlanta week 1.
Yeah, like
part of it's just his goofy personality, though. Like, I don't know.
Like, here's
I enjoyed the Teddy experiment.
Well,
and I understand Teddy's probably not even as good, but I enjoy that so much more.
I actually have kind of
I think everyone did.
I have a hot take about that too. I'll let Ralph go first, but I do.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, Teddy Bridgewater, like, Saints fans loved him, and we rever him, like his 5-0. Like he's probably going to get into
we rever him.
Rever him, is that a word? He's going to get into this. He's going to get into the Saints Hall of Fame. You want a hot take? Teddy Bridgewater is going to be in the Saints Hall of Fame. But what I was going to say is he signed a 3-year, $60 million contract with the Panthers, and Saints, we weren't even worried. We're like, whatever. Good for you, Teddy.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be any good. Like, so
I don't know. I think we had convinced himself that he was pretty good, though.
If he had Sean, he can Sean Payton.
I was a little sad that Teddy left. I had visions of Teddy maybe being Drew Brees' heir, and I mean, dude, I remember like when the whole stadium was going Teddy, Teddy, and I was in that stadium doing it, and I don't know, in an alternate universe where he's the starting quarterback of the Saints, and I don't know, they go 10-7 that year and make the playoffs, I would have absolutely loved that season.
I mean, Teddy, I know he made a ton of money with Carolina, but he should have waited. He should have waited one more. He could have waited one more year with the Saints, and he could have been the starter in 2021.
I have a Jameis take or whatever.
LASIK didn't cure him. Is that your take?
LASIK did not cure him. I was on that train. I was driving that train.
Aldi was on that train in the chat. No,
I was on the Jameis.
Aldi was
going to fix him.
When the LASIK was going to fix him, Aldi reminded us in the chat. I was on the train too, man.
Just kind of speaking of Jameis 101, like I honestly like Jameis 101 kind of has ruined Jameis for me. I'm being dead serious. Like, and I think that's like the worst possible thing that can be said. If you're listening and you're Jameis 101, like I honestly, like he's insufferable, and like it was kind of funny at the start to begin with, and like when I mentioned it and I introduced the whole thing, that the fact that he had written a book, but like
he's turned on everybody.
He's just like honestly, like I would like Jameis more, but like I honestly, like I'm being dead serious right now. This is the crux of my thing. I'm rooting against Jameis, even though I don't want to.
Damn.
I'm dead serious. Even though
the chat agrees with you. The chat agrees with you, Dave.
Even though I don't want to, even though I have no reason to, even though Jameis has never done anything I think wrong at all off the field.
Whoa. You mean since he's coming to New Orleans?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so long ago, we practically forgot about it, Andrew. Thanks for reminding us.
I internally, whether I admit it or not, this may even be the first time I'm even saying this, but like I actively root against Jameis because I hate Jameis 101 because he's so miserable.
Just block him, Dave. Block him, and he disappears from your life.
I'm not on Twitter like you. He doesn't. I'm not even talking about his. Like, he doesn't actually bother me on a day-to-day basis. I don't ever really read anything. I just know that he's out there, and it's just like I'm not like somebody wrote a book. Somebody took time to write a book about this, about how he should be in the Hall of Fame. Blah blah blah. This is the Hall of Fame career, which I think over time is going to, again, like we said, I think is going to age like milk. But But my point is
there was a long tweet about how his completion to Shaq Davis proves that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Again, so there you go. Like that is utterly ridiculous.
Not to annoy you, but
no, but I get it. And so, Jameis 101, he feels like God put him on this earth, and I'm not being hyperbolic here. I mean what I'm saying. Right? I think he thinks that God put him on this earth to defend Jameis Winston and be on this Jameis Winston mission. And I had to help Jameis Winston and to save him or help other people understand how great he is. And I have to be honest with you. I think in the long run, now that we're down this far down the road, I think he's done the opposite. I think he has ruined Jameis Winston.
Aldi says Jameis 101 is my
man like me because he has me rooting against him. I have no beef with Jameis Winston. He won that game against Atlanta week 1. CJ Spiller had one run against the Cowboys, and I love CJ Spiller now. Like I have every reason to just love Jameis Winston just for that one win alone. But I can't because of Jameis 101. Jameis 101, I think you have done the opposite of what you have intended to do, and I think I speak for a lot of people.
You do. Here's an interesting thing, and then we're gonna wrap up the show. But it's an interesting point. Is I've been listening to a lot of NFL podcasts, and they preview the divisions, right? They preview each one, and Mina Kimes did a preview. The Athletic with Robert Mades did a preview, and Andrew, this is like the anti sort of Jameis 101 thing. Maybe is they preview the division. And the nerds are all like, how much of an upgrade is Derek Carr from Andy Dalton? Because the Saints were number 5 in EPA per play with Andy Dalton. So how much of an upgrade is Andy Dalton really? And I'm like, that is a moment.
So they were saying like getting Carr was not big of a deal.
Yeah, like how much
not
is
even Jameis?
Yeah, and I'm like, I hate to be this guy, but I'm like, do you watch the games? Like, I watched the games with Andy Dalton, and I know he was efficient at times and he was okay. But if he really was like a top 10 or a top 5 quarterback, wouldn't some other team been like, he was magnificent with the Saints? We need to have that guy as our starting quarterback. And no one did. I feel like the nerds have taken the stats too far. Like they've gone too far with analytics, telling me that Andy Dalton was borderline elite with the Saints in 2022.
Yeah, they're basically saying that, I mean, what if the Saints were top 5 in whatever metric they deemed was important, then what quarterback would you start over Andy Dalton? But like Mahomes, like it's like 4 dudes that were better according to that stat. So I guess and to quote Buddy D, I'll never forget this. I called in on Buddy D's show.
Wow,
he was slamming Mario Bates at the time. He was saying how pathetic Mario Bates was, that it was terrible that he was the running back of the Saints, and that, if the Saints were serious about winning games, they can't have Mario Bates as their starting running back. That was kind of his thesis. And at the time, I was young. When we called into the show, you were probably running the board, Ralph, for Buddy when I called.
Boy, you know what? That would be some like really wonderful like sliding doors moment if like
absolutely
if the two of you actually talked, 10, 15 years before you ever really got to know each other. Just on the Buddy.
Where were you calling from? So you would have been like Andrew from Uptown. Like what were you?
I was just Andrew.
Well, he was using a pseudonym.
Andrew in Lakeview. I was at my grandmother's house in Lakeview, and so I call Buddy's show, and I basically said, "Look, Mario Bates
Andre
had 3
from
points."
Russia.
I remember this because I remember it clear as day, and I looked at the stats, and I remember telling him, Mario Bates, who you're saying is awful and one of the worst running backs in the league, maybe the worst starting running back in the league, he had 3.9 yards per carry last year. And I started rattling off some names. I was like, Eric Rhett had 3.6.
Wow,
this guy had 3.7. Like all this guy made the Pro Bowl. He had 3.8. 0.1 yards less than Mario Bates. And I was just like, buddy, I know 3.9 ain't great, but the way you're painting this picture, I mean, Warwick Dunn had a lower yards per carry than Mario Bates last year. So I'm like, can you explain that to me? And he takes it in and he immediately goes, well, Andrew, all I can tell you is statistics lie, because if you offered the Saints any of those guys you just named for Mario Bates, they take the deal today. And then he hangs up on me immediately. Boom, done, roasted. And that's what this Andy Dalton thing makes me think. It's like, if you think Andy Dalton is a top 5 QB and you start to rattle off all the names of the guys behind him, I don't know who the guys are behind him, but Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, you go down the list, we'll take all those dudes over Andy Dalton. Every single freaking one, including Derek Carr.
How old were you when you were doing this? Calling into Buddy D?
I mean, what year was Mario Bates on the Saints, Ralph?
I don't know, 95, 96. Butteridge did a highlight today, that Atlanta game where the Saints won 33.
Yeah, of course. You're 15 calling into a radio show.
By the way, Mario Bates
now you got your own. This is just fulfilling your destiny at this point.
That's right. That's
in the highlight that Butteridge posted in the Discord, which is totally probably amazing. You should become a patron just on that. Mario Bates, 22 carries, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. 1985 versus Atlanta.
Wow.
He looked tremendous. Like he caught a screen. Like Mario Bates had a moment. Like there was a moment where we thought Mario Bates was good. Young Andrew did, at least.
Oh yeah, I was bought in on Mario Bates.
Mario 101.
Mario Bates. The only thing he couldn't do
I should then follow that story up with Mario Bates had an absolutely miserable season after my phone call.
Yeah. The only thing he couldn't do was take a punch from Lorenzo Neal. So, so guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the questions. We'll get to the ones that we didn't get to on the live stream tonight. We'll get to them in a mailbag. Mailbags are one of my favorite podcasts we do now.
Are we recording something tonight?
We might. We'll see after two. So Thomas, before we get out of here, remind people who won MVP, and I want to thank to all the people who donated. Read the roll call.
Yeah, so thanks to Romeo, thanks to Who That Golfer, to Archimage, to Hatchet John. Dave. That was Dave. And to the MVP, which is
Butteridge.
Butteridge with 5,500 bits. That was Dave, by the way, guys. You can use our sound bites on our Discord now.
How do I do that?
You click on the little.
I'm gonna have you.
That's fucking illegal.
Oh damn!
You click the little music icon all the way to the left. You can use the sound bite. You can now use our soundboard if you go to other Discord servers. If you play video games or you like. That's the worst joke I've ever heard. You can play it in the voice channel. If you're in the voice channel of other servers, you can use the cool soundboard that Thomas created. It's amazing.
Suck on this, bitch.
Everybody's just
the soundboard is too much power. It's too much power.
Should I take it away and only leave it to patrons?
No. I had my fun. Now that I know it exists, I'll use it sparingly.
No, but I wanted to say one more thing on the show is that we are really, really close to locking in our live show for 2023. So patrons, you want to be alert for your emails that you get from us for content and stuff, because we're really close to locking that in, and it's going to be a special perk for patrons regarding the live show. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks. So, guys, thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks for supporting the show. Please go to saintshappyhour.com, become a patron, support the show. We can't do it without you guys. Thanks to Dave. Thanks to Andrew. Not to Kevin, because he wasn't here. As always, Thomas is the best producer on earth, running the show back in Poland in the middle of the night. That's how committed he is to the show. So remember, kids, if you're going to support a Saints podcast, you ought to support the one that wins back-to-back Louisiana Sports Writers Association Podcast of the Year awards. Until next time, the bar is closed.
The sun never sets on the Jewish Empire.